Svante, who is going to try to wake the crowd up by proposing some suggestion to SGML. Or is it Jason, whatever. I don't remember which one you
Is there a difference?
No.
Okay. Is it okay here with the microphone? Okay. So, yet another suggestion about XML++. I'm Svante Schubert. It's the first time after 2007 I'm attending again the XML conference. Last time it was Boston. Since 99, or at 99 I started working at Microsystems at Staroffice, which became OpenOffice and LibreOffice, and I was standardizing the open document file format. And now I'm a freelancer located in Berlin, still working on ODF, and now as well working on the electronic invoice XML format. And usually I just wanted to, I have no right to tell you what to do or something, I just wanted to give you a different perspective, but my reviewer said I should embrace this pink elephant and tell you something about what could be done better. So I rewrote my presentation, and I thought about what is the best way to talk about politics, which is very complicated because you have 10 people in a room, you have at least 10 different opinions, is to become a ruthless dictator. You just ignore the opinion of others. So in a ruthless dictator, always start with a good marketing slogan. Let's make XML great again. Okay, so is there anything wrong? I'm not sure, right? Because, yeah, I'm a ruthless dictator. But there are some design flaws, like this XML bomb, which is 15 lines of text file, which calls to more than 3 gigabytes of memory allocation, right? And what can we do to change this? In German, we have the saying, alte Zöpfe abschneiden, cut old braids, right? It's a slogan from the students of the War Liberation Against Napoleon, by the way, I looked it up. And it just means get rid of the old stuff you don't need any longer, okay? And I looked it up, and thanks for my reviewer, you always give me the reference who did it. I didn't know that, by the way. It was by James Clark, one of the references, called Micro XML. And he simply said, just get rid of 12 features. He prohibited 12 features like, don't use custom entities, which was the cause of the reason. Just use the 5 built-in entities. And just use UTF-8. Get rid of the complexity. Move it outside. Make it more simple. And also there was a lot of religions taught, like the browser wars. No, not this browser wars. XML against the markup. About get away from this draconian XML error handling. And there's also some XML5, which is an analogy to HTML5, just 2 editors, and one of them from the CS group I know then from the past. And it just, for some people, it's very important. There's a blog of them, 2010, about this, and this is very political. I just meant it could be better marketing, like lead XML, secure XML, or XML 2.0 or something, right? If we were a group and investors or something, we would do different. And of course, we would desire to have transformation to get the old customers on board, right? And say, oh, don't worry, you're still in, right? It's not a problem. And all this, the only reason to do this is to make it easier for new implementations, right? Get rid of old things that we don't need any longer, okay? But being said that was not a problem ever to me. To me, it's a problem that we have 3 XML grammars, right? I would like to have a simplification of tools. When Oracle took over Sun, some of them said it's like the evil empire, but they were quite efficient, right? They take a look at the products, and those products, they don't create money, they are just gone, okay? And this was like a cleaning, okay? Purge. Okay, don't get into it. Anyway, we have a lot of XML grammars, even more than 3. We have RelaxNG, used by ODF. We have then the W3 schema, XSD, which is used by Microsoft XML. And then we have for UBL Oasis and Universal Business Languages called, and for Unit CFACT, cross-industry invoice. These are the 2 XML formats being part of the European standard for electronic e-procurement, using as well XSD. And of course, DTD, which is explicitly not used by HTML, which is kind of fun I would like to address here. It's, you have to or should write above doc type, closed, meaning empty, meaning there is no DTD, right? Because they say DTD is bad. I agree, but there are other grammars, okay? They're far better. And you can do styling everywhere. You can have a styling in the head that makes absolutely no sense, but can do it, and it runs without warning in the W3C validator. Well, this might be riches as well. I think it's suboptimal, and I just stated here. The thing is, we can do better. I looked recently and compared the grammars. There's some taxonomy comparison of these grammars, and RelaxNG is the most expressive one, right? There are downsides, but it embraces the W3 schema and also even less the DTD. And we should drop it like it's been for the DTD and cut it, okay? But we need better tooling, like there's a Sans schema, former Sans multi-schema validator. It has an internal RelaxNG model, right? And you can load anything, DTD, W3 schema XML, and RelaxNG, I guess even Relax and the other earlier ones. And this is very powerful. And you will see later that I depend on that. I looked at trunk converter, that's the converter between schemas, but it doesn't have any XML schema output, which I don't understand. If you have an idea, just address me, I would love it. And the last thing, when we were, because Sans multi-schema validator is in the nowhere, it was vapored, cleaned up by Oracle, there's nobody maintaining it, then, sorry, it was Koshuku Kawaguchi. Sorry, I definitely did it wrong, but he's the, I guess, Japanese guy who also did Hudson and Jenkins, and he was the former maintainer of the Sun multi-schema validator, and Tatu Soloranta, and of course then Jirka. We came together, I addressed them, to find a new home for them, and he has the XML arc. It's an archive, GitHub, where you put old XML technology that still matters somehow. And we moved it over. We tried to be able to have Maven Relax on this, yes? So, and I asked Kishuke, so I want to do rally data. What can I do, right? And he said, oh, there's an old paper from the 60s, long forgotten. Take a look at it. It's wonderful. I haven't understood full yet, but it's not rated yet all the time. But just, it's something to, just related to it. You should take a look at that if you work in this area. So, now, taking off my dictator hat and going to the past. That's my original thought. What did I learn in the past? And I want to, I have tomorrow another talk, and I wanted to give you a background in what pitfalls I followed and what happened, right? So, 99, there was already, there was .com bubble, and there was also the first web office, okay? So, the first web office, nobody noticed, it was never released, from Sun Star Office, was about having a viewer for ODF. It was a Starfish zipped XML format, and like ODF is zipped XML format. And all we have to do, that was my part, was using this new XLT specification. I joined October. The recommendation of 1.0 is November by James Clark. I used this XTJAR. I wasn't aware of any. Now I use Saxon, but I used XLT to map this. It was, and how I did it is I used these semantics that exist, like, oh, there's a table, I find a table here, a list, and that's working. But then there came question. My manager came by and said, when are you ready, right? And he said, don't you know how you're ready? And no, the product management team comes over and said, oh, we need this feature, we didn't have that feature. So it goes little by little, incremental, but I have no idea about the definition of done. Of course, the grammars could tell. We have one feature set and the other feature set, and at some point it's over, right? I mapped everything. But I don't know this feature, if there's a Saxon coverage feature, might be. And the other thing is, I ask myself sometimes, where's the bug? Is it in the mapping from HTML to ODF and the XML I did it? Or is it somewhere and I intend to do it with XLT? So there's two things that I merged and that did like. And in the end, my management came by and said, oh, great, you did a lot of XLT work. Now we want to do the same thing in Java, right? Can we use your source code? Well, I don't think so, right? So because after the .com bubble, there was this second web editor. And this time, we wanted to use HTML at the client to be edited and sent back at the server as HTML. So the ODF server has all the complexity. Some was a server company to do the transition. And we want to do both ways mapping, okay? Which is the next common use case about XML, I realized. And there we needed a runtime model. And we couldn't use Java XML binding because it was for W3 schema, so we did invented our own. All we wanted is load, edit, and save ODF, okay, XML. That's the common use case. And we do it by, as I mentioned earlier, reusing the loading, the multi-schema validator, but we didn't want to validate, just parsing, and on this API model, we loaded information and created templates within Apache Velocity template engine. Okay, it was very simple, straightforward. We have a DOM, a type DOM, where, for instance, a draw image became a draw image element class. Okay, that was very, very easy. So, but the first insight is that a DOM is not the best thing at all. It was when I had some pixel art spreadsheet coming on my way, right? And it's just blowing everything. You know, there's a spreadsheet, and every cell is just a background color, like a pixel. And it takes hours to load, okay? And, well, so we have to realize that XML is great for debugging, to take configuration, you have semantic out of the box. But we are not streaming Netflix, as far as I know, films with XML. And I think it's very good for debug purposes, but in the end, I tend to do to go as efficient possible in a binary mode. But this is very complex. So he solved it by taking away DOM and going back to bit level. Yes, try to go there in bit level. So the second thing, I was so proud of XML, but I realized that's not the final frontier, that's not the final thing. There was David Eisenberg, who, Cole said, I don't want to know anything about your XML, right? All I want to do is open a text document, open a paragraph, insert hello world, and for instance, make hello world bold, okay? Very simple. And he doesn't want to go about the Office document, go to body and sequence and to find the things, element stuff. This was too complicated. Agree. And I believe that Java XML binding, going only on the syntax level, there's often too much complexity in the syntax. Okay, so that is how it looks like, the model, and this is one of the things I'm still maintaining, the ODF DOM of the ODF toolkit, now the document foundation. And the basic thing was one layer about the zipping, one layer about the DOM, and then, of course, we have this user API. And I wanted to generate as much as possible, but there are information missing, like what is a table? What are these semantic things the user usually uses in Office, like inserting and deleting, right? So it's not only a tree, a grammar where every XML has equal rights, right? It's not the full truth. It's just like large puzzle pieces, chunks you add and delete all the time. But XML grammar do not address it, okay? And there's also some XML that have no semantics function at all, like office body, it's just a boilerplate, okay, structured boilerplate, and we have to annotate it somehow. So I was asking myself, how can I do it? And it's a problem that we have this relaxed energy file, it's a text file from 18,000 lines. Very hard to use this. And so it's very hard. It's okay if you just put it into validator, but if you want to extract information from it, it's close to impossible. But there's a way to do it. Questions, and the key was a question like, can a paragraph, can nested in a document? It's very hard to answer if you look at the 18,000 lines in the text editor and try to search and so on. But if you look at it in the programmer view, it's a graph question, right? If you load it in a graph, a tree, then you can traverse it and take a look. Yes, it's fine. And so it's the base idea, and that's a link for it to the very wonderful presentation. I copied the idea, of course. They're using for zero-day exploits and source code at the Chaos Computer Congress in Hamburg. And they loaded source code into different graphs and traversed the same thing. And I just took it over and loaded the RelaxNG into Apache Tinkerpop, which is a graph library. And if you click at the loaded ODFM, there's just a single class where I do it. And you can do it for the O in XML, and I save it to GraphML, which is a markup language for graphs, to visualize it. And also rendered it. So I would love that you join that work. And I met at Fostum, some graph company called, I forgot the name right now, oh gosh. Anyway, TerminusDB, I got it now, TerminusDB, right. They have an RDF graph, and they're using graph databases with Git access and so on. And they want to make a use case of it. Let's see how it's working out. So let's show you something about Gephi. It's a tool based on NetBeans for visualization. So this is like only the table and the table. You see nothing, right? But there are stars. The red things are the attributes. And you don't be so interested. And I zoom in. These things see like leaves, leaves and interleaves, I mean, and we zoom further in. And now you see some blue things are elements, right? So, and this is still very complex. The yellow thing is the relaxing definition, and there's something called epsilon, which we do not have earlier, which means nothing. Choice of nothing means optional, basically, okay? And 1, 2 means a sequence. You have to add first the 1 branch and then the 0 branch. So this can be simplified, and you won't see it maybe, but this is a dotted line. So this is, let's say, more human semantic. And I think it's very good to have a graph to represent data and because we're visual animals, to take a look at the data, okay, you're in. So what I realized that here is that JSON, I didn't like JSON in the beginning, but then I realized that JSON is so wonderful if you want to have a runtime API. You got a map, a sequence, and all the data types out of the box, okay? You can easily work with it. So even I believe it's not so easy to read as XML. I think it's far easier to work with as a runtime model. And I think we can fix this, yes. So I want to improve the grammar, the source code creation. For instance, I told yesterday at lunch that if there are 3 optional child elements, A, B, C, I always handwrite the code. Oh, I'm inserting B. Is C already existing? Is A and C existing? So I insert it in between. And this should be created out of the box. The other thing is in the DOM, everything is equal, but sometimes, like styles, is a map, right? And you should realize this pattern out of the box from the grammar and create me a lazy map that's created on demand, okay? So in general, there are a lot of XML grammar annotation tools like I have this grammar on screen and I annotate now, this is boilerplate and so on. This is simply missing, right? So my suggestions here more, think about the tooling, and our reviewer said, oh, it's about tools, not format. Well, to me, the format is a tool as well to transport this data from A to B, or to make it persistent for backup purposes. So I would love that you join me to work in this area and see if we can expand here and embrace not only the syntax, but go more for the semantic, okay? So another use case. Okay, got time. Now, first of all, yeah, that's just an overview of how we do it, and it's we have the grammar, the multi-schema validator, and then we have the Tinkerpop graph, and then you put it in velocity, yes. But you can arbitrate just out of the box. It's open source, you can try it. And we generated also grammar references, yes, HTML references. And my idea is not only have a Java DOM library, but a Rust library which has a binary model, right? Maybe an inline parser or something like this. But yeah, it's not done, one step after the other. So there's another use case, the other area, because ODF, I thought, is not so demanded as like electronic invoices becoming now a European standard. So there I heard, oh, they have semantic as well and XML. So you will not see, I've got the slides so much, but it's look complicated, it's not. On the left, it's a semantic tree, right? It's an abstraction telling what is an invoice. There's a seller, a buyer, and then it's being mapped to XML, 2 XML formats. You might say, 2 XML formats, why can't we choose one? Well, in Germany we have 5,000 formats, okay? So 2 is a real improvement. On the other hand, I think it was good that we have 2 because then they were pushed to use a semantic, okay? And do the mapping. Because sometimes, let's move into one of them, the cross-interest. It's quite, you see very long names here, right? I didn't see it, but it's a very long name, yes? And it's getting much more easier to read and understand if we go there on a semantic level. And if you now think about the graph thing, these are 3 graphs. We have 1 graph from the grammar, and we have 2 XML graphs. So basically, we have at our fingertips all the information that we need to do a transformation from CLI to UBL and backward, yes? But, of course, there's the semantic gap, but it's written in the spec, the devil has some details, but it's far better than my initial 99, I'm young and stupid, working all night on an XLT transformation. I love XT still, but it's, we have to expand, okay? And so there, I don't know any tooling that aids this way, right? And one of my messages to the editors here, don't forget the syntax, but go a higher level. Okay. Being said that, my takeaway is XML should be simplified for newcomers. I think we all have a lot to do, and nobody is willing to do this, not me neither. But if somebody would do, and like we would agree there would be a dictator, it makes sense, I believe, to cut rates and get rid of things that were likely mistakes in the past, to make it easier for newcomers. The second thing, the grammars, I hope that you understand, is much more powerful than just put in the validator, right? You can do a lot of it, and we should focus on this. And to me, there's too little grammar conversion and tooling, like I cannot save now a grammar when I alter it, so I have to point to it. And yes, the main message is here, focus on the semantic instead of syntax, because semantic will not alter as the syntax. Thank you for listening. Okay, before you throw stones, tomatoes about politics, yeah, you can do it tonight with a beer. Just hand it slowly. No, yes, there's a lot of coverage, and I must say I split the talk to the reviewers. This was the past and the present. Tomorrow is the future, the next Millennium 500, because I believe me and we might do a few things differently than like we should. So, but I'm happy to have feedback.
Okay, so we have time for a question.
Hopefully.
Very nice, very interesting. You've obviously got a large and interesting modeling problem. Can you say a few words about how much thought you've given to mixed content in your graph model?
Sorry, I can catch it.
Have you thought about mixed content in your graph model? This is not in ODF, it's not in OOXML, but most prose vocabularies wind up with mixed content, and avoiding it in things like OOXML and ODF presents a different set of problems. I just wonder if you've thought about mixed content.
Mixed content like binary data? Sorry, I just want to be clear.
No, a mixed content is things like paragraphs in HTML, which can contain embedded tags. You don't have runs of text isolated from all their markup. You've got markup mixed into the prose.
Oh, now I got it. You mean like, now I got mixed content, right? Not text and binary, but you have HTML and ODF and these things, like different format in one form? No.
No, consider HTML, where you begin a p tag and you start writing a sentence, and in the middle of the sentence you insert a citation, a cite element, or an emphasis element, and then you close that and you keep writing. So you can't use, for example, JAX-B to model p tags in XHTML in any reasonable way, because they just don't have any facility for dealing with mixed content. And I'm concerned that you're coming from the environment of ODF, where ODF sounds wrong. The editing tools that don't have mixed content, you may not have given that a lot of thought, and I was just wondering if you had.
Okay. Well, I think we should discuss it maybe later. but yes, a graph representing the grammar is very extendable, yes, and you can, especially if you're able to annotate reference without altering it, you can reference to it. So you can put any arbitrary data on this. And saying that, maybe there's a talk tomorrow, so maybe I can put it in. So, sorry. Any further comment?
Any other question? Oh, just leave it.
Yeah, Philip Nunz from Docufy. I found it very interesting that you showed the 1 billion laughs attack. I think one thing that I would emphasize is that really the huge problem here is basically with DTDs, like doc types in general are really a problem if you look at security in special. And so I think really DTDs have to die. It's
yes.
really complicated to make this safe. And that's something that I not hear very often, so thanks for that.
Thanks for the review, whoever it was, to pushing me in this direction, hopefully.
Yeah, I think it's a very good idea to have some tooling that visualizes the document model. There were some tools a long time ago, so I started with a near and far designer who visualized the tree of the document model, and then there was a tool like Ovidius Trivision that visualized the tree of DTDs or of XSDs, and there are also some tools integrated into the editors like Oxygen, but the best was near and far designer, so if there would be some more tooling in this visual area, that would really be helpful.
Yeah, agree.
Thank you. Okay, so since there is a second part, then maybe we can keep the question for the next part.
Yeah,
Thank you, Svante. Thank you very much.